This is a continuation of the Board of Standards and Appeals public hearing for August 25th, 2020, the 10 a.m. session for one case, which is 2019 265 BZ 35 Giffords Lane, Staten Island. Is everybody in?
No, so we have the attendees, just to give them a second because we have to admit them. Don't see them yet. I don't see them yet, but Kurt, when you see them in, please let them in.
Will do.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have Mr. Parker in at the moment. Okay. And Mr. Rosenberg, I just saw came on. I think we have everyone. And Pastor Comus is on. Mr. Williams is on. Okay. So Mr. Rosenberg, you want to continue or pick up where we left off?
Yes, I think Pastor Comus was talking about the congregation's relationship with the community.
Right. And lost him because we didn't have good. Pastor Comus, you want to try again?
Yes, I'm sorry. And let me go at it again. Okay, so what I was saying before is concerning our church in this community, as well as the four other different communities that we've been serving over the last 28 years. Our heart is to bless the community, to honor the community. We don't want to disrespect the community in any way, and we're doing our best to try to make not only the building to be pleasing. I mean, the last thing we want is for people not to want to come to our building. You know, we're reaching out to the community, so we want the property to be beautiful. We want it to be characteristic of the neighborhood. We don't want it to look like an institution. It is a large building. It's not a house, but we want to do everything possible within cost, obviously, in order to make this a pleasing you know, facility within the community, so they are attracted to it. That is exactly why the church is in existence. Our mission is to reach out to the community. We have operated over the last 28 years in 4 different communities, and we have never, in 28 years, have had one complaint from either a business owner or a homeowner as respect to the functions of our programming, making noise in the community, parking, or anything like that. We want to bring that same character and integrity to this community. As far as the concerns with the planting and the trees and all of that, let me just tell you right off the bat, whatever it is that we need to do, we're going to do. We want to comply. We're not trying to skimp on the presentation of our facilities and the planting of the trees. We're obviously planting the 28 trees. We were just looking for a different species along the rail line, because the main reasoning behind it, and I'm not a planting architect either, but I'm very familiar with the arborvitaes, and that's why I suggested, is because it's evergreen and it would provide those 20 trees in that area. It covers that fence which I don't think belongs to me. I think it belongs to the railway. It covers that fence and it provides a barrier, a sound barrier. And it also looks very beautiful. They grow about, I have it on my property. They grow about 15 feet, 4 feet wide. It would be a beautiful green wall. That's one of the reasons why we chose that as opposed to the standard tree. I think the Japanese, whatever it's called, a 3-inch caliber, because it would provide no coverage, no barrier, sound barrier, and no greenery. And so we wanted to, that's the reason why we're asking for that waiver. Not that we're trying to get out of planting trees, we're not. As far as plant, yes.
I want to interrupt about that. No one's stopping you from planting arborvitae over there. If you think, I don't know if they're going to live because their trees need light to live. And so you need to actually speak to a landscape architect who knows how to deal with this, right? We had an application yesterday where we all marveled. It's a gas station. We marveled at the beauty of the landscaping and how well maintained it was and so on. And they actually had a metal picket fence on the residential property line that had sat on top of like a 3-foot high brick wall with a metal picket fence. And then wrapping around the fence was this beautiful, lush vine, the real thing, not plastic. And that really, really handled both the privacy and added to the lushness of the rest of the landscaping, which included very, very tall arborvitae, but they were not covered by any tree cover, by any canopy. So I don't want to see people who like plants be the ones who design landscaping. It needs to be people who know plants who design landscaping, and that's the first thing. But we're not saying necessarily that you can't provide those. We're saying comply with the zoning requirements that are specific to this special purpose district that says in this district, you need to provide trees of a certain type, because that's arguably, maybe that's how it came up, consistent with the vegetation in this area, right? So, and we don't see at the moment any reason for giving a waiver on that, because frankly, you need to try harder. And just cutting to the chase, I'm going to say it straight because that's what I'm known for. Currently, the building is ugly. And so if you think, and so you need to instruct your architect that we need a building that is a blessing to the community, as you say, that looks residential in character or fits within what you expect to see in a residential neighborhood when there's a church down the block, when there's a building of important social significance in the neighborhood. It can't look like a shopping mall or the entrance to a medical office or something like that. It cannot. So you need to give your architect more latitude if that's what's preventing us from seeing a better building. But at the moment, it's not a better building, all right?
Yes, I agree with everything that you just said, because again, our heart is to be a blessing to the community and to attract the community to Faith Community Church. That's what we want to do. That is the reason why, number one, if you, and we took the renderings and we showed the current photograph, the first thing that I wanted to do was tear down that a 6-foot menacing wall that has a fence on top of it on Sampson Avenue, because with barbed wire, it looks like a prison. The very first thing we talked about is we're getting rid of this wall because this is not a blessing to the community. It looks horrible. So we've been taking steps along this line. And the next thing that you could see right outside that wall, if you look at the renderings and the photos, it is overgrown with foliage and trees, and it looks like a mess. We're taking it on our expense to clean up. That's not part of our property. It's just outside the fence wall there, but we're taking it on our expense to clean up all of that. We laid out grass to show you in the rendering. We put the street trees where they belong. And so we are moving in this direction where everything is a cost factor. And so if you want more trees on that area, then you know what? You got it. I'm not trying to, be hard here. I'm just trying to keep things within cost. We're just scratching just to get into this building and to build it in the way that we could meet the needs of our people. That's the reason why we've laid out the sanctuary in the way that we did. To do it any other way, I'd have to walk away from this property. There's no way we could fit the amount of people currently. We have close to 180 to 200 people. There's no way if we redesigned it to go in the opposite direction from north to south, there's no way we would be able to accommodate our current congregation. So that's why we switched it around. We extended it along Sampson Avenue, moving into Lamoka, which is why we're asking for that waiver there, in order to accommodate the programmatic needs, which we laid out extensively, showing you pretty much every timeline, every room, with the amount of people in every room in order to meet the current needs. As far as the upstairs is concerned, with somebody had mentioned a commission about moving or building an extension to the top floor over the children's ministry. We decided, we looked at it very briefly, but it's going to cost so much money to do that. And the way that we handle our children's ministry, when you have children coming into a building that has a tall ceiling, it looks so much more spacious. The way we decorate it, the different kind of pageants and the functions that we do, it's part of our programmatic needs in order to make the parents feel very comfortable in what they're bringing their children to. I mean, these are design features that would attract the community to Faith Community Church. The fact that we have the lobby in the center, which is the hub, the command center, if you will, when they walk in, and to the right, we have the sanctuary. To the left, we have the children's ministry. We have done a lot of research, and parents today do not want, specifically because of the security measures that we're facing today in churches, synagogues, all community facilities, parents today do not want their children on the second floor of any facility, especially a church. And the reason why is because of those security measures. They want to be able to access their children immediately and immediately get out of the building if need be. So that is the reason why all of our children's programming is on the first floor, within a few steps away from the main sanctuary. They want to be able to drop their children off, know exactly where they are, and then move to the sanctuary. The programming for our children is simply a worship service done on their level. We have prayer, we have all of these different things that we do, just like the adult service. And in the center of the building, we have the community, the cafe. This is where people meet. The whole idea of a church is community, is fellowship, it's socialism. It's not socialism in that sense, not a political sense, but to be social and to have community. And so we have this cafe where people could congregate, grab a cup of coffee, and then sign their kids in, and then everybody go to church. So we have also.
No, I appreciate all this, but I do need to move along because we have other cases. I think the simple instructions are you need to go back to a lot of the drawing board and make sure that the site is planned in a way that describes the blessing that you're trying to accomplish on the interior of the building. Imagine the exterior of the building is the interior of the building and that the community has to deal with it. And imagine that Sampson is the residential community's public face of the church, and that they're concerned about the impact of the church on the community in terms of traffic. No traffic, zero, none is to come, and that includes pedestrian traffic, is to come from Sampson. And I don't actually, other than listening to the fire department, I don't want to entertain any more ideas about the drive-through going through. If the fire department wants some sort of drive, like, drive up the lawn and a breakaway fence or something, we can talk about that. But what it's doing is it's depriving your lot of planting area. And then the next thing is that the facade, which I'm sure, because the facade's in really terrible condition, the existing building, so you're recladding this building, reclad it with pride. Don't clad it with cheap materials that make it look like a bowling alley or a shopping center, all right, a shopping mall. So we don't really need to belabor this anymore. Do any other commissioners have anything to add? I'd like to then open this up to the public. I don't know, we had one phone number there who was in the morning session. If anyone who's in the attendees is interested in speaking on this case,
2019-265 BZ 35 Gifford Lane, Staten Island.
please raise your hand on Zoom, or if you're calling in, dial *9. And we do have one person who's not identified by name. There's just a phone number. Last 3 digits, 433. Do we know who that person is? Is that person on a registration list? Anybody?
I don't
No.
have it.
All right, so I'm going to allow that person to talk. So the person who has phone number 433, if you can hear me, can you unmute yourself and identify yourself, please? I'm not getting a response. Okay, otherwise, if any member of the public who would like to speak, please dial into 646-558-8656 and enter meeting ID number 937-3964-1835. Okay. Okay, then. So, Mr. Noriega, how much time do you need to respond? You're going to need to take some time on this to do a proper job of a redesign that's responsive to our concerns. And, you know, I'm not necessarily saying the design has to affect the interior layout, but it does have to affect the exterior. We have no elevations on the drawings. We have no materials. This building is a three-dimensional structure. So we should see every elevation and how it's treated. We should see it treated with good materials, with a real design, with pride. And we need a landscape architect. So it's going to take you a little time to find a landscape architect.
I think on this, parties will be informed if we have an understanding. I know that the fire department still needs to weigh in on this.
Yeah. Okay, so I can ask, but I'm you know, pretty firm. The fire department can have access, but it's not going to have access on a drive-through that can be easily converted into a permanent drive-through. So,
but additionally, the fire department has yet to weigh in. They'd raised questions about the fire suppression system that
right.
has not yet been weighed in, that we have not yet gotten feedback on.
Okay, so Chief Daly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did receive the architect's letter in response to the sprinkler system being installed, and we have no objection. But I do.
So I just want to clarify, you have no objection to them providing no sprinkler system in the building?
I just got a call from operations, and unfortunately the plans do not show the location of the fire hydrant nor the distance to the to the premises. So I need that information, and then the operations will give me a final answer on not providing or need to provide a sprinkler system.
Okay.
I had done a site inspection. I did not find any fire hydrants.
Okay.
I need the information and
so when you say no objection, you're not ready with no objection yet?
That's correct. They're also in consultation with DOT. I don't know where they're at with that conversation.
Just going to talk about.
Yeah, okay, Tony, so as soon. Okay, and then I don't know whether you've looked at the site plan, but you can see there was a proposal to have 2 means of access or egress from the parking lot. And the applicant is arguing that it's needed for safety purposes. I don't believe it, because we see lots of one-way in-out parking lots.
The width of that entry driveway from Sampson Avenue is 23 feet. And of course, it's curvy. We would prefer 34 feet in straight line. So trucks can come, a ladder truck could come in.
The question is, do you need it at all if you have access from Gifford's Lane?
The hydrant is right outside Sampson Avenue exit. That's the reason why we wanted to open up Sampson Avenue. The hydrant is right there. That's the main reason why we chose that spot to open it up. because that's the shortest hose run from your truck, to the hydrant.
Well, yeah, it has been, from my experience talking to operation, they prefer to operate on the public street. They do not want to operate in a drive into a parking lot. People, the first thing, unfortunately, they're going to think about, oh, I got to get my car out of here before it gets wet or destroyed. So we are always operating on a public street. I think we had a case a few months ago where an applicant was proposing to have a second driveway so we could exit out. Again, we operate from the public street. Now, these plans do not show the hydrant, so if we can get a revised plan to show me the hydrant, I can show the operation, it'd be great.
Okay.
Having that entry or exit off of Sampson Avenue, I can't really comment on that, but I can say that we are operating on a public street because these roadways are not maintained. They may not withhold the weight of our apparatus, and it's safer for us to operate in a public street. So that entry exit way, I have no comment on.
All right, so that clarifies for me. No, I'm just done on that. We said it last time. I'm very surprised to see it again on this application, second submission. Take out the entrance from Sampson and turn that area into a densely landscaped area. And in doing, you'll probably comply with the zoning requirements for landscaping. Plus, you need to prove that the amount of parking that you have on your zoning lot relative to the required open space on the zoning lot and the amount that is paved over complies with the regulations. There's a limitation on how much open space can be covered in parking and in concrete. So you need to show that that's there, and you must provide landscaping on that shared lot line with the residential neighbor. Sort of like the least you can do, right? Okay. So then we didn't get any call-ins from neighbors on this. So I think, how much time do you need to submit?
I'd say about 2 months to submit to consult with a landscape architect.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, everyone, for calling in. Please take our direction seriously, and so that we don't see something that makes us feel like deja vu all over again. Okay.
And please make sure any interagency letters are responded to.
Yes. Okay.
Chair, this is Jeff Parker. We did prepare proposed elevation drawings, building sections and things like that. Did you not get those?
We got very basic elevations and sections that are kind of like simple line drawings. We want to see a real project. I want to see materials, and the sections are very, very basic. They were quite difficult for us to figure out where that mezzanine is, for example. Just so you know, almost everyone on this board is either an engineer, an architect, a planner, or has been reviewing drawings for like most of their lives. So it's not like we need simple drawings. In fact, we want to see complex drawings so we can understand exactly what's going on, and we shouldn't have to ask, where's the mezzanine? I know Commissioner Shanda also was searching. I can't find the section through the mezzanine. Are you adding a floor here? It took me a really long time to figure out, no floor is being added. It's because the drawings aren't clear. So please, these drawings should be at least at the level of what would be required by the buildings department. And to the extent that you're presenting to a client, show us something on that level, because you're showing your client, look, I have a great design, a great project, and you can't do it with little skinny lines that disappear into the drawing. Okay. Okay. Thank you all. And if you have further questions about that, please reach out to your project manager who can respond directly. That's Daryl Ruffin. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, are we going to keep going or taking a break?
So commissioners, say a 20-minute break so that you can finish lunch. Does that sound like a good idea? Yes, I'm getting some approval. So 20 minutes. Apologies to everyone who dialed in on the 2 p.m. session, but we've been going almost nonstop, and we actually need a break. So that would put us in 24 at 45, 2:45 back.
Returning at 2:45? Okay.
Is that right? Okay, is that
20
enough?
minutes, yeah, 2:45.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Everyone here? Yep.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, all the commissioners are here, so we can start.
Yes, good afternoon. This is the Board of Standards and Appeals Public Review Session for August 25th, 2020, 2 p.m. No public testimony is taken during this session. The first item is 2019-201BZ, 285 Grand Street, Manhattan. These are new cases.
Yes, so this is a legalization of a CrossFit physical cultural establishment. We have proof of service of initial application to neighbors, to officials, and of notice of hearing to officials and neighbors. We have a letter of no objection from the community board. We have DOI, but fire department objects to the application because the fire alarm system was altered without their approval. With respect to sound attenuation measures, we have some funny background noise, so could everybody mute, please? With respect to sound attenuation, it looks like the PCE that was approved in 2014 never instituted the measures that had been recommended by the acoustical consultant at that time, if I understand it correctly. I don't know if the current operator under the current situation has the wherewithal, because of course these gyms have been closed since beginning of March and still questionably aren't allowed to open. But if it does have the wherewithal, it should install those measures. Perhaps it's already there, but those measures are already installed, but it's impossible to tell from the photos. You do see some sort of a padding, but I think they're talking about what we've seen is those drop pads, that the Rogue drop pads that are really thick. I don't see those anywhere. And I'd also like to know whether there's a sound system limiter as was recommended by the consultant. That's something we see it as a requirement in most of our PCEs where they play loud music. That study indicated music exceeded noise code limits, which is impressive because it's not supposed to go anywhere near noise code limits. A condition of the prior grant use was use of lifting platforms. That should be the same condition here. It says that weightlifting shall be performed on weight platforms with the specifications as shown on the board approved plans. And then there were weight drop tests that were done dropping from shoulder level at different weight heights. And that's when they concluded that there was perceptible noise and vibration from adjoining spaces. And then I think that those are my comments. Anything else, Commissioner, Vice Chair Shonda?
No.
Commissioner Otley Brown?
No comments.
Commissioner Sheta? Unmute yourself, please. No, we can't hear you. You're
I'm
still.
sorry. No
comment?
no comment except for if they got any complaints from the neighbors during the short period they operated, they can let us know about that.
Right, okay. And Commissioner Shabeta?
I echo the comments that were made by yourself and Commissioner Sheta, and nothing further from me.
Okay. Thank you. Next one. Tony, you're muted. You're muted. You're muted.
You said to mute, and I'm sorry. 2019-280BZ, 137 Fifth Avenue, Brooklyn.
Okay, this is also a legalization that opened in November 2014. We have proof of service of initial application to officials and of notice of hearing to officials and neighbors. Community board waives its recommendation. We have Department of Investigation sign off. We have Landmarks Commission certificate of no effect. But again, fire department objects to the application because the fire alarm system was not approved by the fire department. there was a change in configuration of the space. The sound attenuation measures described in the statement of facts and on the drawing should be a condition of approval. So they could be cut and pasted onto the conditions. And the question posed by our counsel is whether we extend the term from the expiration date, which was 2014, or from the current date. My preference is to begin it from the date of the hearing, because we're always state of now, because we're always looking, I know Tony doesn't agree with me, but I guess the reason is we're looking at the current conditions, but that, up to other commissioners and how they feel about it. Please express your opinion, because most of the time it's picked up from the date of the expiration. So you're not kind of rewarding the applicant for having not come back over all of those years. Nods, Tony. Okay. So Vice Chair Shanda.
First
I
of
just-
all,
I
we
just-
received a letter. We received a letter from
Yeah.
fire department
Yep.
this morning, and it's in that fire department stated no objection.
Okay, so they changed their position then.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Excuse me.
Anything else?
Second,
you.
the sound attenuation. Thank you. The sound attenuation plan should be part of the main package.
Yeah.
And with regards to the start of the hearing, I apologize. I think given this is a unique situation we are in, like unique time we are in, I think some of the projects that are coming in for legalization now, if we were to give them granted from the time when it expired, and there is very little time left, they have to come back in a couple of years. I think as it is, they have been closed for so long. So I will be sympathetic to being open to the idea of letting it start from now, just for this period. I'm not saying making it a standard practice, recognizing that we are in a very abnormal situation.
Fair. Okay, thank you. Any other comments on that, on anything? No? Okay. Commissioner Ollie Brown?
I have no comments on the application, and I agree with the vice chair that we should let the term run from the point of approval and not backdate it. For the same reason, I don't want to be too harsh on a business that's just trying to make it.
Thank you. And Commissioner Sheta?
Again, if any complaints, we want to know about that. Nothing else.
Mhm. And Commissioner Shabeta?
Nothing further from me.
Okay,
And do you have any opinions about when the renewal period starts? The term extension starts?
I agree with the vice chair and Commissioner Otley Brown. I believe that it should start from the time of approval. We're in a very different time, and if we can offer anything we can offer, I'd be happy to.
Okay. Commissioner Sheta, you didn't give your opinion on that.
Yeah, I take the same position.
Okay.
item number 27, 2019-307BZ, 277 South Fifth Street, also known as 263-279 South Fifth, Brooklyn.
Okay, this is not a legalization because the building is still in construction, and I hope was able to continue with construction or resume quickly. We have proof of service of initial application to officials and of notice of hearing to officials and neighbors. Community board recommends approval. We have Department of Investigation. We have a letter of no objection from the Landmarks Commission. And in this case, we have a letter of no objection from the fire department. There are 12-inch thick mats in the climbing area. That's impressive, and I can understand why, because you're really jumping off or arguably even falling off the walls when you're trying to rappel. And as explained in the statement of facts, there are several floors of separation between the PCE and the first residential floor. So it doesn't seem to me that sound is really an issue here. There is a note on the drawings about the location having, quote, an increased occupant load per building code 1004.2. And I know this was a question raised by our project manager, Ms. Ebanks Chu. I just, to make it easier for us, a note should be added to our resolution that the BSA takes no position on the occupancy load in the building, and that such loads must comply with the terms of the parking reduction special permit that was granted under calendar number 2016-4244BZ. And that way, DOB can check whether there's any increase in parking requirements because of the occupancy load. I don't know if there is. But in other words, our parking waiver only went to the office use, not the retail use. So there may be a need for additional parking spaces, but I didn't do the calculations. I don't know. And those were my comments. So Vice Chair Shonda?
I have no additional comments on this.
Commissioner,
No additional comments.
Commissioner Shetta?
Nothing further.
Okay. Commissioner Shabeta?
No additional comments from me, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next item is 2020-5BZ, 21-10 44th Drive, Queens.
Okay, another special permit, also a legalization, which opened in January of this year, January 18th. We have proof of service of initial application to officials and of notice of hearing to officials and neighbors. The community board hasn't yet met on this apparently. I'd like to know from the applicant whether there's an update on that. We do have Department of Investigation. We need fire department unless something was submitted this morning that I didn't see. The acoustical measures taken, including a slab spring isolator flooring system, are shown on the drawings. But as this is a residential building, the lobby really should have been posted with notice of this hearing.
It was.
The lobby was posted? Sure.
Wait,
It was submitted, a photograph was submitted with the posting in the lobby this morning.
yeah.
Oh, morning. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. So when was the lobby posted?
I don't know the photograph. Actually, we do have what, do we have fire department letter? We actually have a fire department letter on this too.
Okay, if you could read it because it wasn't in the folder.
Okay, fire department, these premises, I'll read the second part. The premises has a fire suppression system, standpipe and sprinkler that has been tested and FDNY permits are current. A fire alarm system is also installed and tested satisfactory to the department's rules and regulations. Based on the foregoing, the fire department has no objection to the above referenced application, and this was today at 1:43 p.m. submitted.
Okay, thank you. And then in terms of when was that lobby posting done?
Yowza. I don't see a date on it, but it came in this morning.
Because obviously if the lobby, well, you know, okay, lobby posting, if people can remember what happened in January.
They put the meeting code, well, they've had to have put it within the last few days because we don't post the meeting code information until when, right? So like when we did think we did it Wednesday, Tuesday or Wednesday, we sent this out. So they put the meeting code ID number, the passcode. Well, actually, no, they have that already when they, sorry, they have that when we do the notice of hearing. I apologize.
So we should find it was posted, but when?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's not very clear, but it definitely does alert to today's hearing with all the meeting code requirement.
Right, it has the meeting codes and the YouTube and all of that.
Okay, good. Great.
Okay.
All right. I didn't have any other questions about it. So it's more like we should see if we can get commentary about the gym's operations between January 18th and March. It's not a lot of time to actually find out. Okay. Anybody else on this? Did I not go through the list? No, I didn't. So Commissioner, Vice Chair Shonda.
This is a new construction. It really, I think, opened kind of latter part of last year. So I don't even know if the building is fully occupied, to be honest. The gym, I went by it it's in my neighborhood, so I went by it. You know, when I spoke to the manager, they said that they had opened, but they're closed. and that's it. So I don't, so it may have been just for that 2 months that they were barely open. And the application, I think, was filed before that, wasn't it?
Application was filed on January 16th and it opened on
Okay.
18th.
Oh, okay. So
Someone told them to file. That's good. Okay. Anything else?
I really have no other comments on it.
Commissioner Otley Brown?
No comment.
Commissioner Sheta?
No comment.
Okay. Commissioner Shabeta?
No further.
Okay. All right.
Okay, final case is 2019-66BZ, 15 Terrace View is in Manhattan, Bronx.
Really,
It's in Marble Hill.
Marble Hill. There you go.
Yeah.
Little known facts about pieces of Manhattan that sound like the Bronx, but or sound like the Bronx that are really Manhattan, the other way around. Okay, so let's see, April 20th, we had a postponed hearing where it was properly and so, but we postponed the hearing because there was an issue about community board and also because of COVID issues. So we have service on this hearing of initial application to officials. We have proof of notice of hearing to officials and neighbors. This hearing was postponed in April to give the community board time to review it. Community board recommends disapproval, citing failure to meet the findings, likelihood that the site can be used for a conforming use, including a public parking garage as an example, excessive bulk, and the absence of much needed parking. We have 5 letters of objection from the communities, and unless I missed some count, because there may have been subsequent submissions, citing parking concerns and the impact on the neighborhood due to scale. There are many typos in the statement of facts, some of which are substantive. For example, the height of the building is not 113 feet. The statement of facts is also very repetitive. I have to just beg the applicant to please proofread very carefully before submitting and distill the argument so we don't read the same argument over and over and over again. I swear there were probably 4 or 5 of a given paragraph repeated 4 or 5 times. So you're not improving your argument just because you keep repeating it. As to the A finding, while the site may indeed be sloping dramatically, this is in fact the portion of the Manhattan/Bronx that is known for its steeply sloping terrain. So as with other applications in this area, we may question whether this is unique. If we were to accept uniqueness, I'll have to defer to Commissioner Sheta about whether the sloped site poses an actual hardship financially, since the site is large and the floor plates for the 2-story plus mezzanine commercial building are significant at 5,600 square feet and with a 7,647 square foot cellar level that has a potential for rear facing windows because it's kind of like a split block condition or a split level condition, because though you're entering at grade and down to a cellar, the cellar is exposed to the rear with a view. So that puts it in a kind of an advantageous position with a very large floor plate. If the required 20-foot front yard is the issue in allowing for adequate floor plate size, you know, I might say this board might consider that as a waiver, for example. So they're saying, oh, we would do better if we had a 2 7,600 square foot floor plates. That might be something to consider. The gross floor area of the as of right chart is incorrect. Gross should include the cellar, so please correct that. The as of right doesn't show a retaining wall at the rear as labeled. Rather, if I understand the drawings correctly, let's say the architectural drawings correctly, the building sits on a platform, so there isn't a retaining wall. The average curb level at 37.4 feet doesn't appear to be correct based on the survey. It should be 38.87 when I do the average curb levels. I don't know how the architect came to a completely different number. The as-of-right structurals show the building located at the front property line, while the architectural drawings show it set back from the property line 20 feet. If I'm reading the structurals correctly, I admit that I'm not a structural engineer, but I try to understand. No explanation is given for how the claimed hardship of extreme slope warrants both a use variance and a building that exceeds by 4 times the allowable floor area ratio in the immediately adjoining R5 district, which is 1.25 in an R5, and they're asking 4.67. And also, they're asking for 2 times the allowable height and provide 0 of the required parking for that district and only a 20-foot rear yard. So they're wanting to have it all times, many times. The slope actually provides, as far as I can see, an advantage by permitting usable space at the cellar level, which is what I said before, which is proven out by their proposal, which is residential in the cellar. And then they explain, why can you have residential in the cellar? Because, of course, your windows are above grade, and there is this fantastic view, actually, even though you're looking at industrial views, it's still an open view. Not that many places have that. If a use variance were granted, there's no reason that it should advantage this owner over its neighbors. And that's a theme we've repeated many, many times for variances in manufacturing districts. Why should you get more floor area than your immediate neighbor if they're an existing non-conforming use and they have residential? And in this case, these neighbors are nowhere near the size of this proposal. On neighborhood character, just as I've seen this before, we don't, in terms of the neighborhood character studies, we don't perceive above sea level heights. We perceive, and the zoning resolution measures above curb level. The topographical sections show this building absolutely towering over the neighbors, irrespective of what it is relative to sea level. It's not relevant. So I'd like to know how that's justified in terms of any hardship or minimum variance that the building towers over the neighbors. And although I don't think we're up to this, all the drawings for any proposed project must be more developed and show all elevations and all materials with no blank walls that won't be concealed by adjoining buildings. I don't know why we keep getting projects that are designed as if they're 2-dimensional buildings. Buildings have 3 dimensions and multiple sides, the most typical of which have 4 sides. On the self-created hardship question, we need history of ownership of the adjacent properties, and the applicant has to go through that research for us rather than just handing us a pile of deeds as has been done here. I'm not actually sure why we got the deeds, because they don't establish any real chain of title. It just shows that at one point there was a city foreclosure, but that doesn't explain the history prior to that. So I hand it over to Vice Chair Shanda.
Okay. So as you pointed out, there are a lot of mistakes in the drawings. In the as of right, the building height is shown in one drawing 15 feet, another drawing is showing us 22 feet, which is also different from what's stated in the drawing sheets of A01 and as of right 01 and as of right 07. So they really need to go through these things and make sure it's correct. With regards to the, again, with the as of right, I think my question is if the cellar, it's not clear from the as of right drawing if the cellar floor area is being used as a space, because as you pointed out in the gross floor area, it's counted as a 0. So does that seem like it's not a habitable space or a usable space? And the argument that the applicant later on in the financial and in the has made is that the cellar space, because it will have so many columns and because of the kind of structure they have to provide, they are the space does not have enough operational space for a free-flowing operation for a warehouse facility. And I'll leave that to Commissioner Shetta to kind of explain whether that is the only reasonably cost-effective construction methodology for a cellar, or if there's something that can be done without having to require so many columns and also be able to secure the site lot conditions and the buildings. With regards to the uniqueness, in the uniqueness finding, the applicant states that even if the adjacent land could be stabilized, creating a level site, it is not as simple as just excavating. Based on plans provided, it seems a full depth cellar can be provided, and based on the grade level difference, 2 below grade floors can be provided. So not sure why a level surface in this case is the only option and would be beneficial. The applicant states that the cost associated with construction of a cellar that is column free at this site, I just mentioned, that would be expensive. I'm assuming that, and this is where I would like Commissioner Shetta to help me understand it. I think it would need to, it would be needed to understand if that's the case, then they need to provide the cost difference between a column-free structure versus a column structure, and then we can try to understand that. Also, if the cellar space is not proposed for any use, then why provide bearing walls along the lot line? Would it not reduce the construction cost by just having the columns going to the bedrock? On the contrary, a level site would require digging below grade to create 2 below grade levels, or you're just left with a 1-story building. So I'm not quite there in terms of the way they have argued the steep slope condition here. However, the shallow depth argument, though the site has a 100-foot frontage, the depth is 70-foot wide, and with the front yard requirement of a 20 feet, the building depth reduces further to 50 feet on the first floor. So while the 20-foot setback results in that, you could still try to build the cellar to the lot line and maximize it, and whatever the floor area that is lost on the first floor can be recouped by providing a partial second floor because of the 20-foot setback. I agree that the 70-foot is shallow. However, you have a frontage of 100 feet. So the applicant needs to provide a better justification as to how a 70-foot depth, while that may be shallow, but if it's a 100-foot frontage, so it's almost like reversing the site. If you had a 100-foot deep lot with a 70-foot frontage, how would that not work as a warehouse facility? Because we often hear the argument, it's 25 or 35 foot wide and 100 foot deep. So in this case, let's reverse it. If it had a 70-foot frontage and a 100-foot deep lot, which is the same, only thing is you have a 100-foot frontage. Why would that not work? So they need to provide better understanding of that. Located on a narrow street, that I will agree. The Terrace View Avenue is extremely narrow, and it is kind of bending along this point with two parking lanes on either side. It does make it very difficult for trucks or commercial vehicles to maneuver through the street. So it may not be ideal for warehouse type of operation or commercial operation that would be permitted in this zoning district. But they do have a 20-foot frontage that would be allowed through the zoning that could be used for some maneuverability within the site. But again, I will accept the narrowness of the site and the approachway as an issue that makes it difficult for a reasonable commercial use. Maybe a parking garage, but for a warehouse type of operation, which is the most common type of use in that area, or storage space, which is a very popular manufacturing use of manufacturing sites. Those may not be that feasible here because you don't have enough maneuverability space for trucks or and such vehicles. With the financing, one of the analysis I would like to see is the one that I'd mentioned, is an as of right without a structure or without column structure versus with the column structure. What is the cost difference there? Now in the financing, they looked at also a portion of some of the buildings that are in the Inwood area. I think they should look at this building called the Stack NYC, which is a very new construction. It is slightly south of some of the sites that they have identified, and I believe there are, as I was looking at some building information, there are units available in that, so they could use some of the comms from that. And it's a new construction, so that may help. I'll leave that to Commissioner Otley Brown. With regards to the neighborhood character, and I think this is where I kind of am sympathetic towards the site in terms of the neighborhood, but we have not gone through 1 and 2. So the third part, the neighborhood character, may be a little bit moot at this point, but I still want to say this. The subject site is surrounded by a mix of residential buildings, building typology from immediately 3-story detached homes to 6-story multifamily apartment buildings located at higher elevations. Now, these buildings coexist side by side. However, within the R5 district, there are only 5 sites that have multifamily apartments, and rest are all 2 to 4-story buildings. So with that in mind, I'm not sure a 7-story building fits the context. But I will agree with them is that if you look at the larger manufacturing district in this area of Marble Hill, and I looked all the way from major Deegan Expressway from water as per north one could see, there are very few pockets of non-residential districts like C8s and M1s. And these sites have extremely large lots that are in excess of 70,000 square feet. And these lots are, all of them have access from multiple streetways, have access and are mostly on and have flat terrain. So this site is very unique from that point of view in this neighborhood. This is the only manufacturing site, granted it's 70 by 100, is the only one that is the smallest in size compared to all the manufacturing sites that are there in the neighborhood, M and C8 zones, and has only one street access, and that to a street access from an extremely narrow street, which makes it difficult for commercial vehicles to maneuver. Madam Chair, you mentioned that, why should we afford them more FAR? I agree. The FAR that they've requested has not been justified. It is too high from the neighborhood context. It should be much lower. But some of the residential buildings that are there in the M, some of the smaller sites that are there in the M zones, smaller than this, that is abutting this site, they're all built with residential uses. And these are legally non-conforming residential uses. So, they got the use that works for a narrow site. But this site has never been built, partly because it is not an ideal manufacturing site because of the slope condition. So I hope the applicant will go more into details on those and try to use that to justify the uniqueness of the site. That's all.
Can you say why you made reference to the Stack NYC building?
The Stack NYC building, it's a rental building. It is located in Inwood and it was completed a couple of years back. It's a new construction. So from an amenity point of view, it may be similar. I think some of the examples they have used are mostly older co-op buildings or, condo buildings. Except for one site, I think that's a new construction. And since they have picked a couple of sites in Inwood, this site is also in Inwood.
Oh, so you're just talking about it for comps, not for how
For
it was.
comps. Yeah, only for comps. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Commissioner Otley Brown.
So I'm on the fence about the uniqueness. I'm kind of sympathetic to the fact that this is a fairly small industrial site surrounded by residential on a very narrow winding street. However, and I'm also sympathetic to the fact that it's fairly shallow. It's only 70 feet deep. And aside from the first 10 to 20 feet, it's definitely on a slope downward. But I'm not quite sure, given what the uniqueness issues are, why their choice in an as of right would be to have 1.5 stories plus a cellar, industrial/commercial building that seems to be really high in construction costs. And so I'm not sure that that's the appropriate solution here. And of course it doesn't work. And the reason why, if you look at the financials, why it doesn't work, it's clearly the construction cost of $539 a square foot, which is more than double, way more than double what you would have if you had just a simple industrial building on this site. So my question is there a way to have a more simply constructed building here that's an industrial building, and then we judge based on that, rather than have a very elaborate 1.5-story plus cellar industrial / commercial building, which to me drives the costs up? I think that really is the only issue I see at this point in time in the financials, because the residential rents are fairly generous given the sizes of those units and the location. This is not a residential juggernaut kind of area in terms of income. And they did have to search far and wide for comparables that I think are very optimistic given where this site actually is. They're using residential comps from Riverdale and then even adjusting those upwards, which I'm not quite sure I understand the reasoning for that. But I doubt they're going to be able to get this amount here anyway if they had residential, simply because they're at the top of the market for the Bronx, for the entire Bronx, including Riverdale. So I'm not sure, this isn't really a choice place to be. So that being said, my major issue has to do with the construction costs. I think the choice of the building is too complex a building for this site as their baseline. And of course, therefore, it doesn't work. So I would like to see, if possible, something simpler. And if a simple 1-story building that's more of an industrial warehouse type of building doesn't work, then I'd be more open to some kind of waiver. But I'm not sure that it's going to be to have residential at 4 times the FAR. I think it might be just having an industrial building that doesn't have a front yard waiver, so that at least the building could be sited on the most level part of the lot. So that remains to be seen.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Sheta.
Thank you, Chair. So I will start with the uniqueness. Is the slope at this site unique? I did look at the contourial maps that submitted by the applicant in the applicant's own submission, and I can see like other many sites that have the same or maybe more severe topographic. Let me share my screen. If you can see within the 1,000 radius, the way we the engineers judge the like the severity of the slope is you look at the contour lines and you see how close they are to each other. The more close the closer the contour lines, that means that slope is much more severe. So if you look at an area like this, we don't have like too much steep slope. But if you look at an area like that, this is actually very steep slope. So this is the site here, the green circle. And you see here, I'll take a look first at the 2 like next door buildings or lots. I understand they are existing buildings, but if you look at this guy, this one here, you look at the length of that red line, the small red line here, and the length of that red line, that carries the same slope difference, the same elevation difference as this, but this line is shorter, meaning that this slope is steeper. So the building next door actually, before it's built, had like a steeper slope. Same thing for that building, same thing for the piece of land that's to the left. And if you hover through the entire area, you can see here, 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 these 2 guys, this slope here, I'm not sure if this is like a tax lot, but you can see that this is the main character of the topographic or the topo of that area. So uniqueness wise, I'm not sure. But let me jump to something that's more probably bold than that. If this site is unique, sometimes clients or applicants are claiming hardship based on uniqueness. And sometimes I actually tend to reverse that argument, saying that the uniqueness is not imposing hardship, it's actually giving you a privilege, which I believe is the case for this site. And I explain it why in a minute. If you look at my screen here, imagine that we have a flat site, there is no slope. And they're gonna dig down to whatever, that bottom of cellar. If you look, and this is even not a rocky formation, this is not a rocky site, it's sandy formation, very regular fill and sand, whatever. If you have that, you're gonna need to dig the entire site. In this case, you need just to dig 50%. So that's actually positive. In the typical site, you're gonna need to put slope, the excavation support here, here, and on the two other faces that are in the plane of the page or the plane of the computer screen. So you have two sides, reduction of 50% of the excavation support, and the other two sides, more or less, you have 50% or much less like complicated SOE design. So again, this is positive. If this side, now let's move from the sandy side with sand to a site with rock. What rock do actually to a site when it exists, it does two things that they are opposite to each other. Number one, it increases the cost of the excavation because you're digging in rock, it's much more tough to dig. But on the other side, your excavation support is minimal because you don't need to install any excavation support. And I'm going to show you in a minute how this is reflected in the applicant's own submission when it comes to SOE, the excavation support. But this is one thing. The other thing is when you put the building, if you have a soil formation or a soil subgrade, the strength of that soil is not that good as the rock subgrade. So the foundations tend to be much bigger for a soil subgrade than a rock subgrade. In this case, this is more or less rock subgrade. So the cost for the foundation is much less. So if you look at it so far, the only negative item is you're digging into rock. So if I'm designing this and I wanna like yield a cost-effective design, the first item that I would like tend to minimize is the rock excavation. And if I go to actually the construction cost estimate, if you look at that scary item here, this is one of the items that's driving the equation. 2,000 cubic yard times 1,200 a cubic yard. This is 2.4 million. So this is it. Play with that guy. And before I jump to how to play with that guy, I just want to say that when I looked at the excavation support design, I haven't seen these line items in the drawings. I haven't seen something that's worth 90 grand plus 85 plus 70 grand plus 125. I haven't seen these. So these shouldn't be here actually. The excavation support I have seen is this. This is the structure. These are the structural plans. This is the first page on the SOE. It says SOE. And if you look at this is the fence. This is not even a site support system or an excavation support system. So if you move to the next page, this is the foundation plan. So this is the entire SOE system. And here even it says shoring, shearing, detail where applicable. like, you know what, take this. If you need it, use it. Most likely you're not gonna need it because you're digging into rock. So most likely you're not gonna need to put that. But if you look at the construction cost, and I'm really sad when I say that, because the current applicant, I used to be happy when I review the construction cost estimates coming from, because they used to be like really very straightforward. But in this case, it's different. I understand, but the SOE construction items that are in the cost estimate should be like much less than what's existing. If let me switch to another screen. Now, how to minimize the rock excavation? This is it. This is that cross section that the applicant submitted. He has all of this, like he wanna go like that, dig to up to here, and then he's digging all that rock. All that triangle is gonna be out. Number one, the excavation, rock excavation that's in the construction cost, I believe it's based on excavating like a flat site. It's not a triangular shaped rock slope. When I looked at the quantity, it seemed to be like it's as much as twice what it should be. So that needs to be looked at. And if you want to plan a site like this, do not cut the entire rock, lay around the rock to minimize the rock excavation. If you look at what I'm sketching here, and I sketched this while you were looking at the case before this and the other case. If you go around the rock like that, and even you put pedestals here, you don't need to put retaining walls like the chair mentioned. The structural engineer actually was like, I'm not sure, was he intending to put retaining wall? I don't think so. If you build pedestals or piers, you don't need to put any retaining walls. Instead of backfilling all that, just put a concrete slab and take the concrete slab on pedestals and beams, and you don't need a retaining wall. So I really urge them to look at like managing the construction around the rock. But even if they do not do so, I'm not sympathetic at all with the idea that the existing conditions, the slope plus the rock, are imposing any hardship. And I was really surprised by the size of the building that's proposed. This is a very tall building, very massive building in a neighborhood that the two buildings next door are like, I'm not sure if they are single or two family houses, but proposing that kind of building that's before us is kind of like not possible, simply. So
Okay,
I would urge them to take a look at that.
okay. All right, anything else? So we can
No,
move on.
thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Commissioner Shabeta.
Thank you, Chair. With regard to the uniqueness, initially I didn't believe it was unique based on just the slope alone, but when adding the other factors that were detailed, including lot size and shallowness of the lot, I can't say I'm fully there, but I'm more convinced of it. I'm going to defer with regard to hardship to all this information that that Commissioner Cheta just put on the screen. I think that's really helpful, and I look forward to a response from the applicant with regard to that. That being said, I do want to, and I believe you touch on this, Chair, the seeking of both a use and bulk variance, I think might be a little bit overreaching. And I think that would make it really difficult for us, especially when considering that we have to keep in mind the lesser variance. And when keeping in mind the lesser variance, I think the size of what they're asking for, I think that needs to be scaled down a bit too. That goes also to neighborhood character and the size of this building with regard to the buildings of its neighbors. And And I think that's pretty much, without being repetitive to what other commissioners said, I think that's relatively all I have.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Shonda has her hand.
Yeah, I think I would like the applicant to kind of talk us through the build context of the manufacturing district in this area, and the immediate lots, specifically the lots abutting the site, because these are residential zoned, and and I think they were built. Some were built pretty recently, but they're built to residential use, and I think it was just probably an old building that was reconfigured. Maybe that's what it was. That are more than one unit, and so they're multifamily units. And I think I do think the access to the site is kind of difficult for a manufacturing use compared to some of the other manufacturing sites that are located in this area, because none of these manufacturing sites, even though they have frontage on Terrace View, they're not accessing it from Terrace View. They're accessing from the site, which is more wider street, straight street, that can accommodate more vehicles, commercial vehicles, and also where the building is sitting. The buildings are sitting on the flatter terrain. So definitely there is a difference. That doesn't take away from that. What they're asking is more than what they should be getting. And what is that they should be getting is what really I'm looking for.
Mhm.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Okay, then,
Anything, that's it? Okay, so this concludes the public review session. We will now commence with the public hearing for August 25th, 2020, 2 p.m. The first item is 2019-201BZ, 285 Grand Street, Manhattan.
okay, we have a number of people on this, but maybe it's Mr. Noriega who's going to speak. Can you speak up if you can hear us?
That is correct. I will be speaking.
Okay,
Are
who
you the
else?
only one?
I had asked the Jared Stein to be here. I don't know if he needs to speak, but he is
He's here.
one of
Okay.
the owners. He is here, and there may also be somebody from the engineer who designed the plans. But again, I don't think they're necessary to address some of the comments that we heard.
Okay, so I'll
Jared Stein is
swear
here.
you in.
But they're all, is Lisa Vulgaris and Lady Ventura part of your team?
Yes, that is correct.
So actually, all of them should unmute themselves so you can be sworn in, even if you choose not to speak, maybe you will speak. So please unmute yourselves.
Okay. So do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board and respond honestly to board member questions?
I do.
Do.
Go
Please
ahead.
respond. Please respond, Lisa and Leedy.
I do.
Lisa? Okay, thank you. Proceed, Mr. Noriega.
Hi, so my name is Frank Noriega. I'm from Sheldon Bell here on behalf of the applicant, and we listened to the comments this afternoon, and there are a few outstanding items. So yes, this is a legalization. There was a PCE previously in the space with different ownership, and as part of that application, they did have sound attenuation measures, particularly these rogue drop boxes. Those pads are actually shown in the photos, but they're in their storage location, not where they are in actual use. And they are keyed to the plan next to stair B. There's about 20 boxes, and they're stacked and stored next to the stair when they're not in use.
So sorry, you need to restate that, because what you said was that the rogue boxes are not in actual use, and that would be a bad thing.
Sorry, when they're not in use by people doing weightlifting, they are stored up against the wall. They are in use when there is weightlifting happening, but they are shown on the plans and keyed as such. Similarly, the previous grant, I don't believe required that there was a digital limiter on the music, but if you notice the plans, there is actually a digital limiter on the music, and it is noted on the plans as well. So there will be limitations on the noise and how it affects the tenants on the other levels. So there is a digital limiter. And then
you-
finally,
Sorry, before you go on, because I
Go on.
want to make sure the record is, can you, in your submission, so we keep track of the submission, make sure that you state very clearly that the required that the rogue boxes are there, so it complies with the terms of the prior grant. Weight platforms with the specifications shown on the drawings are being provided, and then you show us specifically what those are, as opposed to assuming we can find the photo that shows it. And
I'm
then,
sorry,
let me just finish. And
Sure.
then also to state that there is a limiter on the music system, and tell us specifics of what it is. So that can be included in sort of the noise and vibration package, okay?
absolutely. We definitely give some more information on the digital limiter. As far as the rogue boxes, I'm just seeking clarification above and beyond what is shown on A002, keying out the plans and where their locations are and how many there are. Do you need something above and beyond that?
Oh, wait a second. Commissioner Shonda, if you can find that fast, that would be good.
It's in A002, and I do see the rogue limiter plan. Now, why is this? My computer is acting funny. It's okay. Yes, I see. It says weight platforms consisting of rogue fitness 6 inches foam plywood pads or Plytech genie mat X-Fit 70 rubber panel to be used at cellar floor. All weightlifting shall be performed on weight platforms. 20 weight platforms will be provided.
Okay, so I think maybe what we need is to be clear about that it's already provided, because part of what my question was, I didn't know whether the gym includes this and whether or not there was the financial ability at this moment, for how long they've been shut down, to provide it. But in your cover letter, just say what's shown on the drawings is actually in place on site, okay?
Absolutely. We can clarify that both the weightlifting boxes and the digital limiter have been provided, and the specifics pertaining to the digital limiter, we can certainly provide that in a cover letter. I believe the only outstanding issue then was what the fire department raised, is that the fire alarm didn't match what they have on file. And there's been conversations both with FDNY and the owner, as well as the tenant. And we understand that we do have to submit a fire alarm application to accurately reflect what is there. So we will need time to address that, but we understand that it needs to be done.
Anything else from anybody else? Any other comments from the commissioners? Okay, I actually would like to hear from the fire department. Ellie?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Yes.
Can you just speak about what you need to see in order for us to be able to allow this to proceed?
Oh, sure. Well, I had a conversation with the building owner, and comparing the approved fire alarm layout plan to the PCE, they're completely different. So as explained, I know you relocated equipment, you reprogrammed the whole thing. So they understand they need to file an application, and all I need is a filing receipt, because the fire department's position is they will not approve fire alarm application until after the Schedule A is approved. So in this case, they need BSA approval, then they get DOB, and then we can do the sign off on the fire alarm. So all I'm looking for at this time is a fire alarm filing receipt.
Okay, great. So then I would ask, maybe, I don't know if one of these people is the architect for the site, but how long, or something, how long do you need to file the fire alarm application?
Okay, so good afternoon. So we now filing for the fire alarm. That's gonna be on the owner, so and tenant. So we filing for the BSA and the alteration type 1.
Sorry, I didn't understand that. You're not going to be filing it, the owner is going to be filing it?
If I may interject, I believe what my understanding is we need a different fire alarm design specialist to file for this. It will not be the same engineers that are doing the alteration for the space. It'll be a separate application.
So in other words, you have to hire a new specialist? Is that what this is?
That is correct. That is my understanding.
Is that, Chief Daly, if you want to jump in, feel free, please.
I didn't know there was a specialist engineering for fire alarm systems, but I mean, yeah, just file an alteration type 2 application. Well, oh, I'm sorry, it's a different procedure now. You file it directly with the fire department. You get an 8-digit filing number, and then it goes from there. Like I said, I just need a filing receipt. Don't need approval on the plan because you won't get that right away. But that's all I need, just filing receipt.
Okay, so who are the people who, okay, so Mr. Stein is the owner of the gym. Who are the other two people, Ms. Ventura and Vulgaris? Noriega?
They are with George Berger's office. They are the engineers who have filed for the Alt-1 to formally add the PCE space to the certificate of occupancy.
So they're the expediters?
They are the engineer's office. And I did, Lisa and Lita, do you do your own filings? They may be the expediters as well.
Yes, correct.
Okay. All right. So I'm not going to try to figure this out. I was trying. So anyway, let me go to the public. And in the meantime, please let me know how much time you need to provide the fire department with what they need. So we're going to invite the public if they would like to speak on this application, which is
2019-201BZ, 285 Grand Street, Manhattan.
and if you would like to speak on this application, dial 646-558-8656 and enter the meeting ID number 937-3964-1835. And let's see if there's anyone with that. And if you're already in this as an attendee, then please raise your hand if you would like to speak on this application. Otherwise, until we see somebody with a hand raised, we're going to keep going with just the timing on this. So how much time do you need to make that filing and give us the information in a cover letter about the sound limiter and the rope boxes? In other words, on a cover letter.
So the cover letter can certainly be done in virtually no time. I'm trying to reach out, and Jared, I don't know if you can hear me or not. I assume 3 weeks would be enough time to get a submission in showing that you have retained, or you or the owner, whoever it shall be, to retain somebody to do the Alt-3 filing to install or amend the fire alarm application?
No, it's not 3 weeks to retain. It's 3 weeks to actually submit the application and be able to show us that the application's been filed.
Yes,
right?
yes, sorry. So in that time, yes, retain them and file, prepare, all of that needs to be done within the 3 weeks. Jared, do you believe that's enough time?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm gonna give you a little more time, but yeah, okay. All right, okay, we do have one caller in who just called in now with a 947 last 3 digits. Is that on anybody's registration list? Last 3 digits, 947. Okay, I'm gonna allow that person to talk because they may be calling in about this application.
The application we're discussing is 2019-201BZ, 285 Grand Street. If you're not calling in about that, then, you know.
Please, well, let us know. So, because you're in. So the person with phone number last 3 digits, 947, can you unmute yourself and identify yourself, please? Which case are you calling about? There's always a time delay because of the YouTube video. Then they can't see me asking them to unmute. Please unmute yourself, phone number 947. Okay. No luck. Okay, so then
Move on.
yeah, let's move on. So I'm going to give you between 3 to 5 weeks. We have a very full schedule. I'm not sure that we could put you on. I was here. I hear the person. No? Who am I hearing? Okay. All right.
Okay, next case, do we call a next case? Item number 26, 2019 280 BZ, 137 Fifth Avenue, Manhattan.
Jay Goldstein for the applicant.
That you're the only person?
In this case, yeah,
Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board and to respond honestly to board member questions?
I do.
Okay, proceed.
I listened to the review session and we amended the plans in response to FDNY, and that's how we got the LNO. So we addressed their concerns and it led to the LNO, so we appreciate that.
Did you actually, sorry, did you resubmit your plans to
Yeah,
us?
we submitted the plans to submit with updated plans. The sound attenuation is actually part of the updated package with an updated date of August 19th.
Okay, so, and you submitted the plans when?
Yeah, yesterday morning or Sunday night. I don't recall, but we definitely submitted them, and that's Chief Daly reviewed it, and that's how we got the LNO.
Okay, can you tell us, because I can't.
Yep. Give me 1 second, I'm looking it up.
Is I copied on that?
Yeah, it was done Monday morning at 7:30 in the morning. Monday, August 24th at 7:30 a.m.
Okay, as you might imagine, it's not really possible for us to look at these drawings. Our hearing went until 7 something.
No, I understand. It wasn't done it was done simply to be responsive to the fire department, which we got at the end of last week.
Okay, so, but the thing, it was what changed on the drawings?
We changed the sheet, the second sheet, which shows the first floor egress plan. We changed it to include the directional arrow showing the rear egress to 20th Street. And that's all that changed on the plans aside from the date.
Okay. All right, good. All right, so I'd like to ask if there are any members of the public who would like to speak on this application.
2019 280 BZ, 137 Fifth Avenue, Manhattan.
Okay. All right, so we'll give a few minutes to see if anyone calls in on this. But in the meantime, if anyone would like to speak on this application who's in the attendee room, please raise your hand. And if anyone would like to speak on this who's in the public just listening on YouTube, please call the number on the screen, 646-558-8656, and enter the meeting ID number 937-3964-1835, # sign. Okay, so I don't think so I just want to, so you put the sound attenuation notes were already on the drawings.
No, I was separating it previously in my application, separating sound attenuation plan from the floor plans. I combined it into a single package, so because I know that's what the board's been asking.
Yeah. Okay, so it was already combined.
Did you give Jay a regular set and a bubble set? I don't see that here.
I did not give a bubble set because we called out the only changes being the that one arrow that we pointed, and that's what Chief Daly also commented in his letter, that was the change we were asked to make, and we made it.
Okay. In future, never give us a set that doesn't have bubbles on it, because we think we're seeing it and we don't know where it is, and then how do we find it? Okay. Every submission should include a bubble set. Okay. Sign. Okay. All right then. Any further comments from commissioners? Commissioner Shanda has her hand up.
Yeah, I'm actually looking at the plans that were submitted yesterday and the ones that I had reviewed. I'm a little bit at a loss as to where the changes were made that addresses the fire department.
That's what I'm saying.
I apologize. Let me pull it up and I will walk you through it.
If it's on the second floor.
No, the first floor egress plan. So if you look at sheet A003.
Okay.
We added where the fire escape is at the rear of the building. We added the dotted line and the note that says existing fire escape to access street.
I see. Okay. Okay.
Fire department.
But didn't fire department also have another comment saying that the door in the vestibule swings against the direction of egress?
Right, but given the occupancy of the space and the number of people in the space, building code allows the swing of the door as is, and fire department was okay with that explanation and
Okay.
withdrew the comment.
Okay, all right.
The fire department, just because we happen to have them here. Chief Daly, are you okay?
Yes, madam.
Okay, all right. Great, thank you. So you can see that without you talking us through it, we couldn't find the change. So never submit ever again without bubbles, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so then I would like to make a motion to close this, and there's no submission because the submission was already made.
Chair Perlmutter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta,
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next item is 2019-307BZ, 277 South Fifth Street, also known as 263-279 South Fifth Street, Brooklyn.
Mr. Noriega, are you here for this?
I am here. Hello.
Are you here with anyone else?
Again, the architect and the owner should both be on, Mr. Enright and Mr. Winter, if they're available, but I think I can address the comments without them unless they are in the room and available.
Okay, so Mr. Winter is on. Is Ms. Vulgaris still is part of your team as well?
Not for this application.
Okay. And so who was the other person?
Mr. Enright, Patrick Enright, if he's
Right.
available. He may, you know what? I take that back. This ran a little longer. He wasn't able to join. He called me a little earlier.
Okay,
So
so Mr. Winter, unmute yourself so that you can be sworn in, please. Thank you.
Okay, do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board, and to respond honestly to board member questions?
I do.
I do.
Thank you. Proceed, Mr. Noriega.
Good afternoon. My name is Frank Noriega. I'm here from Shelton Lobel, BC, on behalf of the applicant. We listened to the comments of the board earlier, and it doesn't sound like there are many issues. It just looks like the board wants clarification regarding parking. I will just note that physical, cultural, or health establishments are considered PRCBs, and under the zoning resolution for parking requirements, they should be the same as a retail use. But we understand that because there is a special permit that reduces the parking requirements based on whether or not if it's office versus retail, if DOB needs to review that, we're not asking for a waiver. We're just asking for the PCE to go into the space. So if that needs to be part of the resolution, that should be acceptable.
Okay, great. So then, any other comments from commissioners? I don't think we had any other comments. No. So I'd like to ask the public if they would like to speak on this.
Madam Chair, I do want to bring to your attention and the board.
Okay.
This premises has a temporary C of O, and they are, as per the building department, are required to have fire guards on every occupied floor. Members of the fire department were at the premises on Friday, and 2 individuals had identified themselves as fire guard, but they are not certificate of fitness holders. Therefore, we have issued 2 violation orders and 2 criminal summonses against the building owners for failure to provide fire guards, contrary to the TCO, and failure to provide records of their fire inspections. I just wanted to let the board know that. We've also notified the Department of Buildings as well, so they may revoke the TCO or do some other action.
Okay.
And if I may, sorry, because I'll direct this to Mr. Daly. Yes, the TCO was issued since our last submission, but my understanding is the TCO is only valid for the residential floors and isn't actually applicable to what's.
You are correct. Yeah, you're all correct.
So the fire guard was not, it didn't really have relation to our space. Is that correct?
That is correct. It had nothing to do with your space. I just wanted to inform the members of the board of this, what is occurring.
Thank you.
That's all.
Okay, so the fire guards are related to the residential occupancy or the occupancy of the other part of the building, not the PCE at this moment.
Well, they eventually they are when the PCE does open, and if they still do not have their fire alarm signed off, they will be required there. But now that we took enforcement action, we'll be doing occasional visits there to confirm that there are fire guards on all occupied floors.
Okay. And Mr. Noriega, or maybe this is a question for Mr. Winter, is the PCE now open? It's not allowed to be, but is it?
Yeah, that's correct. It's not allowed to be. It is not. There is no CO for any of the retail spaces, including ours. But no, they are not open.
I don't know what the rule is going to be for climbing gyms. I just heard tennis. I don't know what else is allowed, but I don't know about climbing.
Soccer, tennis, soccer, something else.
All right, then. So I think we have that covered, and I don't think we had any. We still have that one person who we admitted with a 947 last 3 digits, and we don't know who that person is, but I don't see if anybody else who is in the attendee list wants to speak on this application, please raise your hand on the Zoom lower right-hand corner. It gives you an option to raise a hand, or I don't know if *9 works for people who are in on. Okay, so in that event, I would like to close this and yeah. Close.
Did you ask for members of the public?
Yeah, didn't I just do that?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yes, sorry.
Okay.
Chair Perlmutter?
Yeah.
Vice Chair Chanda?
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown?
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta?
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the next item is 2025 BZ 21-10 44th Drive, Queens. It's also a PCE.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. Frank St. Jacques of Ackerman LLP for the applicant. I'm actually joined by Lars Schofield, who's the owner of the Orange Theory Fitness.
Okay.
Yeah, I am on. I don't see the video though. Or, yep, okay. I found my square. I'm here.
Okay.
But
So please raise your, oh, I'm sorry.
All right, go ahead.
Raise your right hand. So do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board and to respond honestly to board member questions?
I do.
I
Okay.
do.
Please proceed, Mr. Frank St. Jacques.
Thanks, Tony. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Again, Frank St. Jacques from Ackerman LLP. As I mentioned, I'm joined by Lars Schofield, who's the owner of this Orange Theory Fitness studio and several others in New York City. We listened to the review session, and I'll just touch on I believe that the 2 issues that were raised, and then we're happy to answer any questions. Regarding the notice, I'll confirm that the notice was posted in the residential lobby on August 18th, which was last Tuesday. We understand that this is not compliant with the BSA's requirements for the building notice, but we wanted to have something up in advance of the hearing as we missed that deadline. Regarding the community board review, we met with Community Board 2's Land Use Committee twice regarding this application, first on February 19th, and then again on June 17th. The full board has not yet issued a recommendation on this hearing. I've contacted the district manager several times to see whether or not we'll be on the September 3rd full board calendar and whether or not the full board will take up the Land Use Committee's June 17th recommendation, but I haven't heard back yet. I will note that on June 17th, the Land Use Committee recommended disapproval of this application solely based on the fact that this was a legalization. Unfortunately, there's not a resolution or any meeting minutes available publicly that I can offer to reflect that that was their decision. I think that the transcript and the meeting minutes will bear that out. They were very clear that they were upset with this application because it was coming in as a legalization rather than waiting to open the business until after a BSA special permit was granted. So I'm not sure, what more information we can provide. I understand that I'm, not really the one to convey the community board's recommendation, but that's my understanding. And although I've requested several times from the district manager some more information about what's next, I simply don't know that at this point.
Well, we often, for the benefit of Mr. Schofield, often see legalizations, unfortunately, because this odd special permit takes a long time to process. And meanwhile, you're paying rent. And so we're sympathetic to the sort of plight of gyms. And the main thing that we're always looking at is, did you install adequate acoustical measures so that you're not driving your neighbors crazy? In this case, it looks like there's this really elaborate spring system that was included. We've had problems with Orange Theory gyms, but they didn't have measures like this. It was effectively a floating sprung floor. So I hope that that's successful. And I think that a posting of a week under normal conditions would probably be okay. It's also possible that nobody's home to actually comment on what ultimately was an experience only from mid-January to the beginning of March. So kind of in a difficult position, but just to say that neighbors have the right to complain about this going forward and actually bring the gym in for a compliance hearing if it turns out that the acoustical measures are not adequate to prevent the neighbors from being woken up in the morning with their beds shaking. And I'm not exaggerating. We've actually had gyms where people wake up at 5 a.m. shook in their bed or seeing the water moving on the nightstand. So, okay. So I would then like to ask if there are any members of the public. I see one hand up from Carol. I just lost her name. Yes, and we've let her in. Carol, I'm going to mess up your name terribly. Bokunowitz.
Bokanowitz.
Bokanowitz, I was close. Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was trying to get on earlier. I was that phone number that couldn't get through earlier. But I finally just joined on the laptop. This is with regard to 137 Fifth Avenue, the last case you were just talking about.
Oh.
And
So I just want to say that I'm not really sure how we handle this, but I don't want to deprive you of an opportunity to be heard. So
you want to
make a testimony? Yeah, please. This is isolated testimony for a case where the speaker didn't have an opportunity to be heard on the prior case.
So will the board make?
We have to reopen. We have to reopen.
Yeah, is that what you wanted to say, Kurt?
Yeah.
Can I make a suggestion? Can we just hear this one and then
that's a good idea.
Before do the next one, we reopen and hear Ms. Carol?
Yeah. That's a good idea. Okay, so we're going to Ms.
Bokunowitz, yes.
We're going to just put you hold off just for a few minutes while we finish up with the current case.
Okay.
Reopen the Fifth Avenue case, and then you.
Okay. Great. Good.
So again, are there any speakers on this case?
2025 BZ 2110 44th Drive.
Okay. So, and if there are any speakers on this case, which is an Orange Theory Fitness Gym, please call in at 646-558-8656, ID number 937-3964-1835#. And if anyone is in the attendee room, the Zoom room, and you'd like to speak on this case, please raise your hand. Or if you're calling in by phone, it's *9. Okay. So assuming that we don't have any speakers just for the minute, I don't think there were any other issues. So I could we could close this and allow the community board, because the community board meeting, the first full board meeting is September 3rd, which is next week, basically. So we could just close it, and if there is a problem from the community board, we could reopen. But I don't want to hold this up, because to the extensions are allowed to open, I don't want to be the one to holding this up. Okay.
That makes sense, and we appreciate that, Chair.
Okay. So I'd like to then make, I don't see anybody calling in on this one, so I'd like to make a motion to close.
Chair Perlmutter?
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda?
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown?
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta?
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
All righty, so we're recalling 2019 280BZ, 137 Fifth Avenue, Manhattan, and Mr. Goldstein is appearing also. He's the applicant.
Mhm.
So proceed, Ms. Berkowitz.
Wait, we have to have a motion.
Oh,
to
yeah.
open.
Sorry. Motion to reopen. Chair Perlmutter?
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda?
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown?
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta?
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta?
Aye.
Okay, proceed, Ms. Berkowitz.
Yep. I own a building that is adjacent to 137 Fifth Avenue. I live at 5 East 20th Street, and we share an alleyway with 137 Fifth Avenue. The windows of SLT Studio are on that alleyway, as well as our own windows. And when you mention people being woken up at 5 o'clock in the morning to booming voices, that's us. We haven't heard it in a long time, because we also haven't been living here full time lately, but I've probably called about 20 times at 6 o'clock in the morning to ask them to turn down their microphones. It's really major amplification. And then they will even open the windows, which makes it even worse. And we just don't seem to have any recourse. So we're woken up daily, kind of, around between 6 and 8 a.m. And then they start up again just at the time of day when you're trying to sort of wind down from the day, between like 5 and 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night. So it's very, very intrusive and very disturbing. And they need to soundproof that space.
Okay. So, Mr. Goldstein, are your clients still present?
They're not, but I understand the comments. I'm looking at the plans right now. I can discuss with them in terms of sound limiters, which I know they have, but I think we can, obviously work on that. And also potentially a closed window condition.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt. The only thing with the closed window is it doesn't really do it. It's still pretty booming. It's a matter of either blocking the window up and soundproofing it, or no microphones.
I understand the concern, and Madam Chair, if you'll give me time, I'll go back to the project architect and the client, discuss the concerns raised by Ms. Bokonowitz.
Yeah.
I do. All right.
Pretty close.
And I will, I guess, instead of a close, I'll come back on a submission on this to address those concerns.
So what I would like to suggest is, and you need to do this offline, because otherwise the whole world gets to know everyone's phone number, that you sent, Ms. Bokonowitz, if you send your contact information to our project manager, through submit, so it's submit@nyc.gov, right?
What is that, MIT?
No, NYC, NewYorkCity.gov, NYC.
Yeah.
It's submit at, no, I'm wrong. Submit at BS, sorry, somebody else say what the number is.
Submit at bsa.nyc.gov. And I think the project manager is it Jolene?
Yeah. Yeah, but rather than give her name, her phone number out over the airway.
Yes, absolutely.
Submit at bsa.nyc.gov. Please send your contact information to that with a reference to this address so that we can forward it to Mr. Goldstein, and then his client and you can get together, ideally with an acoustical consultant. That's normally what we use as the standard. So Mr. Goldstein, your client should be hiring an acoustical consultant, and then normally what they'll do is they'll do testing on the adjacent property to see what the levels are and to make sure that they're cured with whatever treatment of the windows or wherever the sound is coming from. It may not even be coming from the windows only from the windows. Okay.
Now, I had actually previously, we sent a note over to submit at bsanyc.gov, but not to the project manager. So now, how do you spell Jolene?
No, that's okay. You can just send it to submit, the same address, but just include the calendar number, which is 2019-280BZ.
Yeah.
The project manager will then be sent a copy of the information.
Okay. Okay, great. And also, Ms. Perlmutter, I have to say, we also just Federal Expressed a letter to you because we didn't think we were going to get on. So I just, so you know that, because it'll probably come to you tomorrow.
Okay,
But-
it'll go to our office, and we do have sort of a skeleton crew there, but so maybe it'll be scanned. We'll go into our record. So that's another way to have your contact.
Okay.
You
But
did
this
send
is
it
great.
You sent it to 22 Reed Street?
I think he sent it, my husband did, and he just walked out the door, 250 Broadway.
Well, it'll get forwarded. The mail must know that we relocated. So we're now at 22 Reed Street, 10007, same. Okay, I'm sure we'll get it, but in any case, please do send your information and a copy of that letter.
Will do. Okay.
We really appreciate your calling. Obviously, it's very important that you called because we didn't know anything about this. And so thanks very much again. So we cannot close the hearing, obviously. And now Mr. Goldstein and his client have to do some serious working with their neighbor. Okay.
Great.
Thanks very much. So we'll, I'll set a rehearing schedule, or not rehearing, a continuation schedule in sometime in the future, allowing enough time to go for some back and forthing, and we'll let both Mr. Goldstein and Ms. Okunowitz know. Okay.
Great.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Okay. Thanks so much for your help.
Thank you so much for calling in.
Okay.
Okay, the next case is 2019-66BZ, 15 Terrace View, Manhattan. The only one?
No,
Oh,
I have
and Barbara?
Barbara. Charles Al-Wakil is the architect. Brian Goldstein is the structural engineer. Michael Jurista is the client, and Roberto Fuentes is the cost estimator.
Okay, you have Ephraim, you have Charles, you have Roberto, you have Barbara, Michael.
Right.
Is everybody there? Okay, everyone unmute yourselves, please. The team members, could you unmute yourselves? Unmute, Mr. Fuentes, unmute.
Okay.
Thank you. Raise your right hands. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board, and to respond honestly to board member questions?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, please proceed, Mr. Goldstein.
Good afternoon, Jay Goldstein for the applicants. Although we do have our whole team here, and we were anticipating comments, most of the questions and comments that were raised. I think based on what was raised during the review session, it's better, or we're all better served if I address them in writing. I don't think we should speak to the plans or the financials at this point, and the hardship I'll amplify and I'll proofread the statement of facts. Apologies.
Okay. Does that mean that's it?
They were, the questions all ring on the same general theme. We understand the comments and we appreciate all the work that the board, the direction the board gave. I don't think that we'll be well served by doing this now. I think doing it in the written record is a better idea.
Okay, we don't disagree. We love it when it's a very efficient response that's all tied up in a bow in writing that we can read and scrutinize at our own
Bubbled plans, with bubbled plans.
bubble plans and totally. So then I would like to, there's also someone, Charles Al-Wakil, is he part of your team?
He's our architect.
Okay. Okay, and I see Roberto Fuentes. Okay, so they're part of your team. So then, thank you very much. I'd like to ask for members of the public to speak. We have a number of people in the waiting room, not a lot, but like 5. So I think we should just let them in and make sure that they're the ones who they're speaking about this particular case. So I see Marenas Cruz, Laura Spalter, and 2 phone numbers. One last 3 digits 173, and another last 3 digits 214. So all of them are now permitted to speak. And if Ms. Cruz, or I'm not sure, and there's also Mr. John Eddy who called in. So I'm going to do this kind of in order. If Ms. Cruz could unmute herself. There we go. There we go. YouTube video, please, because we get feedback.
Hi, can you hear me well?
Yes, and state your name, please.
Hi, my name is Marenas Cruz. I'm a member of the Marble Hill community. So a lot of the things that were mentioned earlier are some of the concerns that we have as members of the community. Marble Hill is a really historical community with a lot of charm. There are, residential buildings in the neighborhood. I think, perhaps like 5-6 story buildings. I think that 7-story building would, other than the promenade that's at the end of the block on Adrian, there are no buildings that, have this this configuration. And 59 apartments in 7 stories is a very high number of apartments in an area that's already, congested, struggling with parking, and, with pollution and sanitation. So we're very concerned about that. The other pieces, and I think that, a lot of what was spoken mentioned the traffic congestion, that would cause, being that this, Terrace View is a one-way street. And so I'm assuming that for some time, the traffic would have to be diverted. I'm not sure how that would be accommodated. So as, members of the community, we're very concerned with how this might, impact the neighborhood.
All right, thank you very much. We appreciate you calling in and participating in the hearing. So now I'm going to go to Ms. Spalter, Laura Spalter. Please take off, unmute yourself and identify yourself.
Hi, I'm the chair of Bronx Community Board 8, and I just want to say that Board 8 unanimously voted opposing this plan. I will be leaving it to our chair of land use, Chuck Murther, who is, I'm sure, on this call. Just wanted to say that it's the traffic, the one way, it is totally incompatible with this neighborhood, this residential area. And we were unanimous in rejecting it. They say that they will develop a construction plan using the U-Haul site at the bottom of the hill to minimize all the traffic issues, but Mr. Goldstein also admits that he does not have anything, or at least when he met with our board, any binding arrangement with U-Haul to that end that would give any clarity to this situation. I have listened very carefully to the review session, and I'm looking forward to hearing the responses because this is, there are many, many issues and problems here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your call. I also see Mr. Eddie, whose hand is up. So please state your name if you can hear us and unmute yourself.
Yes, hi, my name is John Eddy. I'm a resident of Marble Hill. I live 1 block away from this site. I know it very well. I've lived here for 10 years. I just want to reiterate that the things that Commissioner Otley Brown had mentioned earlier are 100% accurate. Rents in this neighborhood are nowhere near what this developer most likely thinks they will get. I know about numerous vacancies, apartments that have been available in the area for many, many, many months, even pre-COVID. The fact that there is no parking planned for in this apartment building is just absurd, only because I literally at least once a week have someone knock on my front door asking if there's a spot in my garage available for parking. Every single night, if you drive through this neighborhood, every single fire hydrant is blocked by a car. All of the sides of the streets where it's no parking allowed, if you go out there at 11 p.m., 12 p.m., you see cars lined up illegally parked. The police department doesn't do anything about it. Tickets very rarely get written except on alternate side of the parking street days. There is a massive, massive parking issue in Marble Hill. It doesn't affect me, but it does affect all of my neighbors, and it is a constant complaint. To plan something like this just means that the developer did not do any market research of this area. And I believe there is probably different reasons of why he wants to build a 7-story residential area, knowing full well that he would not rent it to the public.
To the public? Sorry.
Yes.
In other words, it wouldn't be rentable?
Meaning that it would most likely be rented to the city as a homeless shelter.
Well, why is it you live in a building that has in-building parking?
No, I live in a house, and I have a 2-car garage.
Okay. Okay, thanks. All right, thank you very much for calling in. Appreciate it. All right, we have also one phone number. Let's see, it's a 214 last 3 digits. Whoever that is, please unmute yourself and identify yourself.
I know the community board said Mr. Merdler was calling, but is that Mr. Merdler?
I don't know. I don't see his name anywhere. I only see that one phone number. And maybe that's the same phone number that's been floating around at all the hearings and they never responded. No. So I'm just going to give another second or two for that number to pick up. We're asking about someone whose last 3 digits of their phone number is 214 and they've called in, but we are not hearing them speak. You have to unmute yourself if you want to be heard.
And if you press *6, that will unmute you by phone. Again, *6, that will unmute you by phone, phone number 214.
I also see Commissioner Shetta has his hand up. So while we wait for the public testimony to improve, let's hear from Commissioner Shetta.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to use that time window. I have something that I didn't mention. I need to get response to it in writing. It is for the structural engineer. On the structural plans for the as of right, the foundation plan specifically, it points to some walls perpendicular to the Terrace Ave, and it says shear retaining walls or shear retaining wall. I would like an explanation for the function of these kind of walls. This is a 1-story building. It's not tall at all. So shear wall used to be used for like the tall building to withstand base shear to transmit it to the foundation. Retaining wall is used to retain soil. In this case, we have rock, it's not soil. And we have a very short building, so there is no actually any significant base shear. So I would like to get an explanation for what does a shear retaining wall mean here, or how it's functioning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, can you hear me? Madam Chair?
Hear you. Great.
Hello?
State your name.
This is Charles.
That's
Charles
Mr. Merdla.
I chair the Land Use Committee of Community Board number 8. And let me, if I may, have a couple of minutes to make a few points before going to the specifics. This board has a long, long history of trying to work with developers and with those who seek to improve our area in any material way. And so a few years ago, we were asked by the city to work with the Bloomberg administration at the time to identify sites where affordable housing or other housing could be constructed. We took a very careful look at this, and the people who were working on it included a former senior assistant to the mayor and a bunch of other people who had a considerable amount of experience with housing. We rejected this one because it creates two problems, and I think you need to focus on them because the brilliant analyses by members of your board fail to focus on this point. On the front of the site, facing terrace view, you have a narrow street, you have low-rise housing, all of which you have pointed out very carefully and quite correctly. On the rear of the site, you have two events that are, or now three, that are troublesome. One, you have land owned by the U-Haul people. And we were told by Mr. Goldstein that they haven't even had any discussions with them in terms of trying to work out access. Number two, you have a school. You have indeed have a whole educational complex, and whatever comes on that side of the building has to have an impact there. And thirdly, you have the access to the Marble Hill housing, which is an area of a New York City Housing Authority buildings. So it has complexities of traffic, just as the terrace view site has. And for those reasons, primarily, the board decided and advised the city that this is not something that makes sense for an awful lot of housing. Now, there's been focus today on the use of some form of manufacturing. With respect, other than car shops and the like, there's very little manufacturing in this area. Where there has been, the city has asked that hotels that were proposed be shut down, and they were. So that's an issue. But there is one need, and it's one need that's been touched on across the board, and that's parking. And if that parking came in either at the top or at the bottom, that would be a public service and would make money, because as everybody has testified, there is a desperate need for parking on the terrace view side, and there's an even greater need on the other side. So that's a plus. Unfortunately, while Mr. Goldstein has been more than cooperative, there has been no attempt by the applicant to communicate with the board and sit down with the board and see if we can work out something that makes some sense, which is what we want to do. If there can be a use, there's no reason why a person should not have the right to use his property as long as it doesn't interfere. As presently contemplated, I can tell you quite candidly and from a fair amount of experience, the character of this neighborhood will be adversely affected. There is no ifs, there are no ands, and there are no buts. It is very clear as well that the traffic situation will go from bad to horrible. And lastly, there may be a very serious problem with the MTA. Now, city planning has called to our attention that there are remnants of a railroad track or railroad possession at the bottom of the hill, and that has not been factored in by the applicant or anyone else. And in addition, there is the issue of what we're going to do, or what the MTA is going to do, in connection with both the Spreitendival station, which is at the bottom of Terrace View, and in connection with the traffic underneath it. So that there are so many considerations here. This one really needs greater study, cooperation with the community board, which will be happy to cooperate with them, but a clear understanding that the area that is bounded by Terrace View is just not susceptible of housing that is absolutely accurately described as overreaching 4 times the FAR. That's piggish. And with respect, it's not the appropriate thing. I thank you for your courtesy. And if you have a question, I'm happy to answer it.
Yeah, thank you very much. We do appreciate you calling in. We know you're a frequent participant in the Board of Standards and Appeals hearings. I do have a question. Can you give a little more information on the rail remnant that you're talking about? Why that would be relevant to the project?
I do not know any more than the following, plus what I've said. We received a communication. We communicate with city planning on most applications just to make sure that there is consistency. When we communicated on this one with the Bronx office, we were told there's an issue that involves remnants of a railroad at the bottom of the hill. Mr. Goldstein was asked that question. He said he couldn't find any such indication. I then threw the ball back to city planning and have not heard back from them since that time.
All right, so kind of an unknown and may not be relevant to the project. Okay, yeah, Mr. Goldstein?
In response to the railroad remnants, what was discussed at the community board is that we didn't find it on a survey, we didn't find it on Sanborn's, we didn't find historical data regarding it. We asked city planning, who mentioned proximity may or may not have a play in. We asked them directly if they have information, please provide it. He said at the time he did not. We haven't heard. We're happy to address it if there is an issue, but at this point, we don't have an issue to address.
Okay, understood. All right.
I think that's a fair statement, Madam Chair, if I may, other than the fact that we were told that city planning specifically was going to focus on this because it would have a planning issue elsewhere under the zoning resolution. I don't think there's an MTA railroad track, and I do have some background on that area.
No, there's a railroad track on the U-Haul site. It's further separated from our site. It didn't impact our site. Again, the city planning was at the community board meeting on both occasions when we presented, and we're happy to address it if it is presented to us. At this point, with the information we have available, there is nothing for us to address. So, okay. You know, not trying to skirt anything, just don't have information on it.
But in response to some of the comments that we heard in the submissions, what about an as of right that's parking garage as opposed to manufacturing?
So it's something that was brought up at the last community board meeting, and I think that we can analyze it in terms of the structure, what's going to be needed, and see how the financials would play out in that. Also analyze a parking structure for parking and traffic impact, as opposed to what an analysis would be for a residential impact.
Well,
Madam Chair, if I may.
No, just one second. No, it's not a comparison of the impact. The parking structure is as of right. So the question always with an as of right is you're allowed to do it. The zoning decided that you're allowed to do it. And it sounds like it would be drawing the parking needs of the community. So you're not increasing the amount of parking there. You're actually addressing what the testimony we got actually from Mr. Eddy is that you're actually addressing all the neighbors who knock on his door and say, can I park in your garage, right?
We can analyze it. We'll analyze it as part of the financials.
I would say a parking structure would be like a very good idea, especially it could be managed around the existing rock slope. It's to build like a warehouse, even to build a residential, you need to make the finished floor as like a flat surface. But with parking, you could actually utilize some like features of the existing slope to work for the garage.
Actually,
Madam Chair,
Yeah,
if
go
I
ahead.
may just give one quick comment.
Yeah.
If in reviewing the feasibility, if they would look at it not from the terrace view side alone, or maybe, but the primary entrance ought to be at the bottom of the hill, moving up.
We don't have access from that. It's
Right.
circled in by U-Haul.
They may not own the
But you're
property.
going to have to talk to U-Haul either way. So
Right.
that's not an excuse.
Well,
maybe-
I
You
think
said you
if
had
the
to talk.
applicant is proposing an as-of-right use, the as-of-right use would not require them to talk to anybody, but have to provide everything on site that is accessible from their site.
Right, I actually don't
So
want to.
we need to keep it that way.
But let me just say that there's two different ways of looking at a project. One way is making a case for a variance, and the other way where we're having to look at the confines of the property that's owned by the property owner. However, there's also another way, which is working with the community to try to come up with a viable solution that the community can support. And so sometimes that requires what I always call the milk and cookie time, where maybe you do make an agreement with an existing adjacent property for access, but it looks like the access might need to be through an elevator that takes you up to the level for the parking, which, by the way, isn't like we don't see it. We just saw it a few cases ago with an elevator you drive into and it drops you, in that case, to cellars. In this case, it would raise you to above grade levels. But anyway, so try in the interest of finding solutions that both work for the community and work for the property owner. Okay. All right. So I think we heard from everyone who was in the waiting room. So how much time do you need to respond to the many questions?
Probably we have to wait for one to finish before the other, so probably 3 months. Only because we need to wait for the engineer so we can match the architecture, match the costs, and match the financials.
Right.
So,
And an opportunity to go back to the community and see if you can maybe find something that's more amenable.
yeah, we have to do the as of right for the parking structure first. I think that's something Mr. Mordler mentioned a few times, so we'll do that and see where it lands us.
Okay, good. All right, so I made that note. So for everyone on the call, this board will try to set up a hearing where they submit 3 months from today, which means that the hearing would be approximately 3 weeks after that. And you can actually, well, most of the time the community board, I believe, is advised they get a copy of our calendar. Is that right, Tony? They get a copy of our calendar. So the community board will be advised of when that new hearing date is. But for other members of the public, either you reach out to your community or you can, in a couple of weeks, go onto the Board of Standards and Appeals website. So that's nyc.gov/BSA. And you can look for the calendar on the site, and it will announce it'll show you when the hearing is scheduled for, which will be something like, what is it? It might be in late December. Okay. Okay, thank you everyone for calling in. We really appreciate your testimony and your participation.
Thank you.
This concludes the public hearing for August 25th, 2 p.m.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks so
Thank you.
much for all of your hard work.
You.
Thank you.